What's up, Dragon Brew? Welcome to our fourth video in our single card strategy series where we're going to be talking about Twilight Diviner. This is a card that is an elf in black, which we do have a few of those, but it doesn't really work with all the other elves the way you would think. Elves generally want to make mana, ramp up, do something really big, search for something out of the library, but this one doesn't really do any of that. It focuses on the graveyard and getting you some free value from the cards returning to the battlefield. So how do we use that? Well, today, we're going to clear that up for you. Oh, and don't forget, if you like this type of video, again, this is our fourth in the series, you should check out the other ones, but also don't forget to like this video and let YouTube know that you do like these types of videos, and maybe subscribe while you're at it. So, Twilight Diviner is a 3-mana, 3/3 elf cleric, and when it enters, you get to Surveil 2. Now, that's actually good on its own because it does allow you to set up the graveyard by potentially putting a couple of creatures there that you can get back later. When one or more other creatures you control enter, if they entered or were cast from a graveyard, create a token that's a copy of them. This ability triggers only once each turn. Now, this ability does limit the card a little bit in the sense that if you have multiple things return at once, you only get to choose one of them to make a copy of. So you don't necessarily want something like Raise the Past where you're getting 4 things back, because then you only really get to choose one of them. Not to say that Raise the Past isn't a good card, there's a whole deck based around it, but not necessarily the combo card you want with this. More accurately, if you want a spell that works with this deck, you want something that's just going to reanimate a single creature. So something really cheap like Helping Hand is generally pretty good, right? There's a lot of little things you could put into the graveyard. Heck, it could be another copy of Twilight Diviner, and you can get that back, and now you have multiple copies onto the battlefield. But Helping Hand is actually useful because it gets things 3 or less, and it goes straight from the graveyard to the battlefield. While it may be tapped, you don't really care because you'll be able to make another token copy of that thing anyway. But really, there are a lot, and boy do I mean a lot, of spells that can return things from the graveyard to the battlefield. And we're not going to go over all of them because there's a bunch of different reanimation spells, right? I think we all know that. I think particularly we should talk about various creatures that do things manipulating the graveyard to battlefield creature pathway that we could take advantage of, right? And then you could use some of those other spells to just get these cards into play and then just stack up that ability. So let's talk about a few different creatures. The first one that's a little unassuming is Dawnhand Dissident. It's a 1 black mana, 1/2 elf warlock. It does blight for 1 and allows you to surveil. And when you blight, you put a -1/-1 counter on one of your creatures. And then this allows you to surveil to potentially put something in the graveyard, which is good because you sometimes do need things to fuel your graveyard so that you could eventually get things onto the battlefield. However, the second ability lets you tap it, blight 2, and you exile a card from a graveyard. Now, this is fun because it's somewhat of a, I guess, defensive card against other graveyard decks. So if they've been trying to put stuff in the graveyard that they can use, you could blight something of yours just to make sure they don't get something back. So it's always nice to have a little bit of defense in there while you're trying to push forward your own game plan. Now, the rest of the ability is during your turn, you may cast creature spells from among cards you own exiled with this creature by removing 3 counters from among creatures you control in addition to paying its other costs. What this means is this card kind of becomes a single card engine, and what we mean by that is this card actually creates the thing and then uses the thing to get you an ability. In this case, it's putting blight counters, -1/-1 counters on your creatures, and then you could remove those to actually cast something that you remove from your graveyard. That's actually kind of sweet. And this allows you to then get a copy of that thing because of your Twilight Diviner. So this is a great card that lets you fill out your curve with the 1 mana thing, gives you a little bit of defense, and just gives you a way to also fuel your own graveyard actions. So yeah, this is a nice piece to have, and they happen to be in the same set, Lorwyn Eclipsed. Another card from Lorwyn Eclipsed that works really well with these cards is Emptiness. And not a real surprise, the incarnations have proven to all be very good. In this case though, this is actually in the right colors you're generally going to want to play. Black for sure, probably white, and has 2 really sweet abilities. So you can play double white, so you can return a creature with value 3 or less from the graveyard to the battlefield. We were just talking about doing that with Helping Hand, so these go side by side, obviously. But then you also could pay 2 black if you wanted to, and then you can use it as a removal spell. Or, I guess if you just needed some things to remove counters from, I guess you could put these on your own things and use it with the Dawnhand Dissident. Not something I would recommend, but hey, options. Now, Bloodgas is a fun one because it's from Aetherdrift, but it was also a reprint from a previous set. But this can just come back for free. You don't really need to spend anything or do anything. So if you found a way to get it into the graveyard, well, you just play a land and then this just returns. Now, admittedly, you get this and a token that can't block, but that's fine. You're getting an aggressive creature. So I think if you play this card, you just have to decide on how aggressive your version of the deck is going to be. If you are leaning more toward the aggressive side, then Bloodgas is going to be the card for you. If you're not being as aggressive, then maybe you forego Bloodgas and get some more utility pieces in the list. However, I will say if you are going to be on the aggressive side, a card like Timeline Color actually fits well with that. It can be aggressive on its own, but if it ends up in the graveyard, well, you can get it back into play by paying its warp cost, which also gets you a second copy of it, so now you have 2 haste creatures for that 1 mana, which is kind of cool, actually. So yeah, this is a very neat card that is worth considering if you are going to go the aggressive route when playing Twilight Diviner. Again, not saying it's mandatory, but it does pair up well with the Bloodgas, so you kind of already have a few pieces if you want to go that direction. Now I have to admit, one of the things that makes something like Bloodgas appealing in this type of list is that you don't really have a cost associated with it. So what other cards can we play that don't really require heavy costs that still let you take advantage of the Diviner? There's a couple of them that come to mind. If you want to go the red route, why is that so hard to say? The red route, we actually have Alesha Who Laughs at Fate. Now this is cool because if your creatures are dying, various ways, your opponent blocking, you chump blocking something, whatever, like you can get something right back onto the battlefield, but now you're getting 2 things instead of 1. This is kind of the exact type of card you'd be looking for. Now, admittedly, it does cost 3, as does the Diviner, so you kind of have to be a little tricky with it. However, you could always attack first when your opponent don't see Alesha, then you play it, and it triggers during your end step, and you get the creature back, again, getting 2 of them. So this could be a perfect card for that type of deck. And this next one's a fun one, because I've actually not even built a deck with this card, but this is kind of the exact place something like this would fit. But Xu-Ifit is an osteoharmonist, which are a word you never even see. Magic only, I'm assuming. But it is a 3-mana, 2/3 human wizard. It is legendary, but so is Alesha. But here, you can just tap this, return a creature from your graveyard to the battlefield, and it's a skeleton in addition to its other types, and has no abilities. And you activate it only as a sorcery. Now, yes, downside, you lose some of the abilities from the things that would be returning. However, this doesn't have a size limitation. If you notice, some of the other things we played are return a thing 3 or less, or whatever. This doesn't have that. So you could build a deck where you're just getting anything back. You might just want a 5/5 body. Maybe you have some stuff that only really works half the time anyway when it enters a battlefield, or maybe when it's played from your hand. So if it's returned from a battlefield, it wouldn't trigger anyway. There's probably a few different ways you could use this card, but it is worth including even if you're getting something small back, because you're getting 2 copies of it instead. And then I guess as a bonus, it's a skeleton. Don't know how often that'll matter, but it could. Oh, and while I'm thinking about it, you could actually use a whole mechanic alongside the Twilight Diviner. We have Mayhem that came out with the Spider-Man set, and you have to discard cards to the graveyard first, then you play the Mayhem abilities, and then the card returns to the battlefield. So if you have something like Carnage that just says, all right, it can be played with Mayhem. Granted, you don't want 2 Carnage because it's legendary, but other cards that have Mayhem. But Carnage does have the ability to also return something else with 3 or less, so you could get multiple things that way as well. So any of the Mayhem stuff is actually worth considering with Twilight Diviner as well, because you're getting all of those Mayhem mechanics and synergies, but also getting bonus creatures for each time you pay the Mayhem cost. I think in the end, whatever you decide to do with Twilight Diviner, don't focus too much on that being the thing for the deck. Make it do the thing you want to do, like we're talking about maybe an aggressive mono-black aggro-y thing that has the options to take advantage of some Twilight Diviner synergies. Or maybe you are doing a bunch of stuff where you want to return all those small things, but we're also playing other cards that are just useful in general, whether that be Alesha or Xu-Ifit or whatever the case is. But then again, maybe you're playing a whole Mayhem deck, right? You're taking advantage of discarding and playing your stuff. And then Twilight Diviner is just giving you extra value. So it's actually kind of a neat piece to a few different strategies. We just have to figure out which one works best. But again, if you like this video, be sure to do all the things that make the ding so YouTube is happy and knows that you like these types of videos. And let me know in the comments if you like these types of videos or a card you're confused by, and maybe it'll show up in a future single card strategy video. But that's all I have for now. We'll see you next time.